Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Hey everybody, before you jump into this week's Combat Sports UK podcast, I've got some exciting news for you. Do you want to look as stylish as Thomas Shelby when you train? Do you want to experience the comfort that can only be achieved by a cup of tea on a cold day? Well, good news for you guys. Ex-Martial has partnered with us, Combat Sports UK. They are the fastest growing brand in martial arts for a reason. They are making waves and taking practitioners with their slick, stylish, and hilarious designs that are fit for a king. From rash guards to shorts, streetwear, and more, Ex-Martial has got you covered. Ex-Martial is an extremely community-oriented brand, having given away over $50,000 in free gear last year alone, as well as sponsoring over 300 athletes. And if you shop using the code CSUK10 at checkout, you can get 10% off everything in store. That code again is CSUK10 at checkout. Go and check out xmartial.com and enjoy the fight.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Combat Sports UK podcast. On this week's podcast, we're going to be discussing UFC 306. We never got a review done last week, so we're going to do a quick rundown of what went on in that. We're going to touch on Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler and the saga that is going on there. Jones and Stipe has also been announced, so we're going to discuss that. And we're going to end off with giving you our picks for UFC Paris this weekend, which I am really looking forward to. As usual, we've got the man and his knowledge. John, how are you, my friend?
Good. Yourself? Thanks for shutting out that of knowledge.
I'll say that now before we start getting into debate, sure. So just one last note before we get into this podcast. We're going to try and bring this podcast to you as a weekly thing from now on. So every Monday night / Tuesday morning, this podcast will be uploaded. Whether there's a UFC card on that weekend or not, we're going to be discussing fight cards. We're going to be discussing the latest news and gossip. So tune in on YouTube each week, and we'll look forward to having you. And drop a wee comment as well and let us know that you're watching and give us your reviews. So without further ado, we'll get on with this week's episode. UFC 306. I really enjoyed it. The fights themselves weren't great. I think that's the whole narrative around it, and quite rightly so. In terms of a spectacle, it looked pretty cool. We're going to discuss later whether it was 24 million's worth of cool, but that's something we can get into. But in terms of the fights, in my opinion, there was one breakout star that came out of it, Diego Lopez. Me and you both predicted it, John. We thought he was going to give Brian Ortega a beating. I think we both picked him for a decision because Ortega's chin is very, very good. What was your thoughts on Diego Lopez? What a performance from him.
On fire. This guy, since he fought Evloev even, when first fight in UFC, he's on fire. We talked about him when we previewed the podcast. He's on such a momentum, and he just keeps climbing the mountain of the featherweight division. And he hasn't fought like bums, let's say. He fought, his last two fights to the Youssef, who was probably, he's a well-known striker. He's one of the better strikers in the division too. Beat him on the feet. Ortega, probably the more good, well-rounded fighter. He's a great boxer, good jiu-jitsu. And 30-27 him. There was one judge scorecard that had 30-26. I didn't really see a 10-8 round, but
Do you not think the first round was enough for a 10-8? The first minute, maybe?
Maybe first minute, but you don't judge the fight by the first minute. You don't, the round. You judge it for the whole 5 minutes. I see a lot of people, and I saw it live too, when Lopez landed at 1-2, the right hook and the left hook. It looked like the right hook knocked out Ortega, and then the left hook woke him back up. So that was, if he didn't land the left hook, we could have seen a first round finish probably. But, Ortega, it was kind of the reason it wasn't a 10-8 for me. Lopez tried to finish him on the ground. He's like, let's go. We're both jiu-jitsu guys. Let me show you who's the superior one. And Ortega had none of it. It gave him time to recover. It didn't show complete dominance on the ground by Lopez as we're used to it. It was a fun matchup to see how he was going to do. He did try to move his feet, jump in, throw some hands on him, throw some elbows. But it wasn't dominance. He didn't completely dominate for the whole 5 rounds for me to see a 10-8. If he was on him the whole time, just no damage. I mean, all damage landed on Ortega and Lopez didn't get any damage, then I would have seen a 10-8. I'm not mad about it. It wasn't like a deciding judge scorecard, but it was just dominance for Lopez. I know Dana had a funny moment after. He's like, usually he's nice after his fight talking to him, but this time he's like, give him my title shot. He was angry and yelling at him. And you're right too. I think that's a great way. You finish. Sorry, not you finish. You beat Ortega, who's number 3. Now you're ranked number 3. You're behind Max and Volk. Max and Topuria are fighting. Volk, we don't know what's happening. He's kind of taking a day of break. So, and now the Sterling Ivlev fight fell off. So, clear number 1 contender, Diego Lopez.
I think you touched on something there in saying that Volk is out. A whole narrative here is there is people saying that Lopez should be fighting Volkanovski. And what's kind of happening here at featherweight, we've got a very, very stacked division. And, you've got Evloev. That would be an interesting fight for Lopez because obviously that's him running it back. That was his last defeat. So it would be good to see Lopez getting that one back. But he's, in my opinion, by doing that, he's moving back in the rankings. Diego Lopez deserves to be treated well. He came in UFC 300. He got a great finish at there. UFC 303, there was the whole saga where he weighed in 3 times on fight week. He still turned up and had, again, one of the fight of the nights with Dan Ige that night. And then UFC 306 in the Sphere. If it wasn't for that fight, well, the Esteban Ripovic and Daniel Zellhuber was a very good fight too. But in terms of the main card, this was the fight that guys are talking about, or this was the breakout performance that guys are talking about. So I think he deserves to be treated pretty well. Being treated pretty well could look like a matchup against Volk because that's something that Diego Lopez can't turn down. He's the star power that he would get from that fight would be unbelievable. Or do you think he should wait in a title shot? The problem here is I think everyone kind of knows whether it's Max that wins or Ilia Topuria. Volkanovski is sitting out and waiting on that fight. So there's kind of a bit of a line forming here, and especially if it's Topuria. Topuria, it doesn't seem, he said himself he's not going to be active. So if Topuria beats Max Holloway, you can maybe expect, 9 months' time before we see him fight the likes of Volkanovski, which means Diego Lopez, someone that's been so active, is he really going to sit out for that long? What do you think he should do?
The last part, yes. Volk has to sit out as much as he can, especially being knocked out against Islam and Topuria within a couple of months. It's good now he hasn't fought since February, I want to say. February. He hasn't fought since February. It was the second pay-per-view of the year, right? 298.
I'll check that one while you're talking.
I don't remember if it's 298 or 299. But anyways, first 3 months of this year, he fought, and he hasn't fought since. And he doesn't seem like since until 309 there is all the cards are stacked. So until December, he probably, if it'll be his next fight, will be December. So I'm happy about that because you let him recover, let him train properly, let him get back to his like he was saying, he was just drinking and not and like kind of half training. So if he's back on the full Volkanovski mindset where when he was champion and trying to be active and fight every few months, if he's like that, perfect. I don't mind seeing him booked against Lopez and have a clear number 1 contender. But I think either way, both of these guys have the number 1 contender spot already. I think it depends on what happens with Topuria and Max in 2 months or 1 month. What happens between them? Because if Max wins, I don't think it's going to make a lot of sense for Volk to fight because he beaten him already 3 or 2 times, depending how you see it. You would beat him 1 time very convincingly the last time.
Oh, he pieced him up. The second fight they had, it was like, you could argue it was Max split decision. The first fight, he kind of won by leg kicks. And so I don't know how excited I would be to see Max and Volk for a 4th time, with Max being technically down 0-3 against him. So if Topuria wins, we could probably see a rematch versus that. If Max wins, we could see Lopez jump in. So I really think for them, it depends who wins in the championship. And then that will decide who's going to face next. Because then if Max wins, you have Lopez in there. Then you could have a Topuria-Volk rematch because Topuria is going to be active.
I think once he doesn't become, if he loses the championship, he'd want to be active and remind everyone like, hey, I was champion. Let me fight Volk again and see what's up. And Lopez, if the UFC really wants to do it, they could do that fight. But then they'll have one fighter who's clearly not going to be a number one contender, who's going to come off a loss, and you can't just throw him into the championship fight. He would have to fight somebody again. But then that could be a chance for Sterling or Evloev to fight that loser of that potential matchup to get a number one contender spot again.
You were right. Volkanovski got knocked out by Ilia Topuria in February, so
yeah,
it's going to be at least 12 months since his last fight, until the next time we see Volkanovski. And I do like that because he was too active. He was taking fights just for the sake of taking them and they end up. So it will be good to see him well recovered. I think it's safe to say that featherweight is up there with one of the most stacked divisions at the moment.
Yeah, of course. Since I want to say, since Rodriguez kind of got the interim belt,
yeah,
which was kind of last year ish, it got stacked, right? We had Emmett that was running up hot. Also, Emmett hasn't fought in a while, so his last win was against Bryce Mitchell, who sent into the shadow realm. So he's coming off kind of a big win. Let's see what he happens to do next. We have Sterling moving up from bantamweight, and he took out Cater, who's a top 10. Was supposed to have a top 5 match versus Evloev. Evloev was in a 17 fight win streak, although no finishes. We have Lopez, newly in the top 3. There's a lot of options, and I'm pretty sure if I look at the standings, there's probably somebody outside the top 5 who's clearly jump in the top 5 soon as well. Can't really think of anybody at the top of my head right now, but and Rodriguez too. I think
you can't count him out.
Fight. He gets a big win. You could talk to him about being right in the top 5 as well. So there's no downfall. Featherweight is one most exciting, if not most exciting. We have bantamweight, so many contenders. Weight, there's a lot of movement too, with Pereira being the active fighter now, taking up the Usman and Volkanovski title of being the most active fighter champion. And there's a fight with he's fighting Kilo Roundtree. Jamal Hill's in the talks. Uncle I's fighting Rakic. Blachowicz is somewhere always near around there. So it's exciting time. Especially featherweight's probably the most exciting right now, especially with a title shot coming up right now.
I think so. And then I always find it interesting when you add someone. It's the same with Figueiredo moving up the bantamweight. It's interesting when you add a former champion at a different weight class. In this case, Aljamain Sterling, because looking at the guys that he's fought, yes, he has been fighting some of the big name guys on featherweight, but he hasn't beat any featherweight contenders yet or number 1 contenders. But that doesn't mean that he's not a number 1 contender himself, because he's proved that he can do it at a different weight class. So that division right now is unbelievable. There's so many good fights to be had, and I hope whenever Max and Ilia do fight, I hope it's not so long before we see the featherweight title in contention again. I think if it's Max that wins it, I think he'll be active enough. He usually is. If it's Ilia Topuria, he seems to fancy himself as the next Conor McGregor, and he seems to want to take a bit more time out. In terms of Brian Ortega, he was on the receiving end of this beating. Something we discussed before was his move up the lightweight. I think that's inevitable now. We were both kind of surprised that he had actually took this fight at featherweight. I seen this crazy stat about Ortega, and it was in his last 6 fights, he has absorbed 750 significant strikes, and 574 of them were to the head. Brian Ortega, he's one of them guys where his chin in his later life, his chin is that good. It may be his downfall. It may lead to things like CTE because he can take such beatings. What's your thoughts on him? I think the obvious move for him is lightweight. Is there any fun matchups? I do have one in my head, but I'm interested to hear who you think he should fight at lightweight first.
Probably like Oliveira. There's a similar type fighter. Oliveira, I could see. Maybe a Gaethje, but that's hard. That's hard, especially if you absorb so many fights. Sorry, so many punches, strikes. Probably the one that makes sense for me is probably Gamrot, if I'm looking at a top 15.
That would be a good fight. One I'm going to throw out there, Paddy the Baddy. Imagine
Oh,
the
yeah.
jiu-jitsu and that, both guys chasing a sub. I think that'd be unbelievable. That'd be a great fight. And it's a great next fight for Paddy as well. Obviously creeping into the rankings, fighting a guy like Brian Ortega, who's a veteran of the division below. In my opinion, it's a fight that makes sense, but it's also a fight that if Ortega gets beat by Paddy at lightweight, he can forget about trying to climb the rankings at lightweight, really, because Paddy's a guy that's just crept into them. So, but to me, that is the fight to make. That'd be a really exciting one.
I just don't think it'll make sense for Paddy because he was looking upwards in the division, while Ortega is not ranked in lightweight. But it'll be a cool fight.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying, but yeah, I suppose by beating Ortega is not technically going to boost him up the rankings, but in terms of name value, it probably is his biggest fight so far. And it would probably be his most impressive win so far. Like beating Brian Ortega is more impressive than beating Bobby King Green, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it would be impressive. For Ortega, I would probably, it might too harsh to throw Tony Ferguson as an opponent.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's probably that's an interesting one. It's like, oh, if Tony gets a win, okay, that's good for him. But if Ortega gets a win, you're like, okay, maybe Tony should retire and Ortega belongs at lightweight, kind of. Even Bobby Green wouldn't be a bad fight. Like, I know he's a striker. He's a striker. He just lost his ranking in the lightweight division. So fighting him would be interesting, I think, especially if they're both kind of type boxer fighters.
I think the thing about a fight with Bobby Green is there's a very good chance it could go the same way as what the Paddy fight did. Ortega's very, very dangerous off his back. I hope Bobby King Green would have learned from his mistake of shooting for a takedown against a jiu-jitsu specialist. But I think that would be quite a similar matchup to the Paddy one. In terms of the main event, then this was one of the other talking points. There's something I want to address here. I have seen this online. Sean O'Malley and Chael Sonnen and others claiming that this was a robbery, claiming that Sean O'Malley won rounds. What rounds were they giving him? 1, 3, and 5, and that they think he won the fight. John, am I going mad? What planet are these guys on? Chael Sonnen has to be saying this for attention. There's no way a guy that fought and is that knowledgeable in fighting thinks Sean O'Malley won that fight.
First of all, I just want to start off with whatever Chael says, I don't listen. Because he literally just says to grab a headline, grab attention, get more clicks on him. And that's what he did throughout his UFC career, and that's what he's continuing to do it outside. So whatever he says, don't listen. That's for everybody out there. Second of all, whatever they're smoking, I want some of that. Because there's no way in hell they won. O'Malley won that fight first of all, saying as a robbery. Second of all, I can't even argue that O'Malley won a round. He probably won
I would give him 5.
Probably as an argument. I could argue with you about that. But he didn't do anything for 25 minutes. Even when he got Merab hurt, when he kicked him to the stomach, and Merab was backing up, which was the only time Merab was backing up during the fight, Sean did not pour anything on. He didn't do his stupid basketball dribbling moves, walking forward, try to hit him more. Go from body to head to surprise Merab. He just did nothing. So I can't even argue that he won that round. It just seemed like he hurt him-ish at one point because he didn't even drop him. Didn't do anything. And I'm pretty sure Merab ended that round on top of Sean. So I don't see where Sean won either of the rounds. This fight was so disappointing for Sean. As a person, we always see like cool, calm, collected, was able to step back, find his shots on the outside and everything. No, so disappointing for Sean. I can't argue any rounds won for Sean O'Malley.
I was very, very disappointed. And I'm actually more disappointed in the fact that he's coming out and claiming that he won this fight. Like, who does he think us fans are? Does he think we're stupid? We watched it. We seen he didn't throw any combinations. This here's the thing that surprised me. Sean O'Malley, he's always been that guy. He'll land that one punch, but he still throws combinations. He didn't throw, I don't think he threw any. It was one punch at a time. He wasn't backing up with anything. And as you say, in that 5th round, he did have Merab hurt. Merab uncontrollably was wheezing at how sore that front kick to the body was. And Sean O'Malley didn't go after him at all. He did a wee tiny bit, but he didn't have that killer instinct. And what a moment that would have been for him if he could have performed like that for 4 rounds and went out and got the win in the 5th round. The last 4 rounds wouldn't have mattered. People would have just been talking about the fact Sean O'Malley got the win. So he had that opportunity. He had Merab very, very hurt. And you see it all the time. People can't control the body shots either. The body shots, if your body gives in, you have to go down and take a knee. There's no getting away from it. And Sean O'Malley really did not seize that opportunity. But I think it's absolutely ridiculous that he's trying to say he won this fight. Do you think it's him? Is he trying to create headlines? Is he trying to create a narrative? Obviously against Chito Vera, he lost that fight as well, the first fight, but he did have an argument. They say, "Oh, I won that one," and he done that thing whenever Bruce Buffer reads out his record. Yes, exactly. So I think his narrative is going to be he's still going to try and do that, and he's still going to try and say he's undefeated. He knows rightly he's not undefeated, but I think that's the narrative he's going to push. But it's incredibly dishonest, and I don't think it's right, to be honest.
All right, so 2 points about O'Malley. 2 things. First, I think O'Malley is trying to has a fan base and he's trying to satisfy them. And he's doing like the Colby Covington thing that like he has a delusional fan base and delusional mind that he has to keep that aura going. And so of course he doesn't think, I don't know if he thinks MMA fans or UFC fans are stupid, but he definitely thinks his fans are stupid and they'll just go by the loyalties behind him, that they love him so much that whatever he says is going to go through. That's this point number 1. So I think if O'Malley would say, "Oh, I won 5 rounds," his fans will go for it. The second point, I cannot even argue a win for O'Malley. I cannot even argue a round for O'Malley there. So I think they're trying to get clickbait type clicks to see like how far they could go, and then they'll get some people to agree with, and they'll start a discussion. But there ain't no way O'Malley won 1-3-5. Ain't no way O'Malley won 1-3. Maybe there's an argument he won 5, but it's ridiculous that his fan base is like that, and they're trying to. I don't know how to say this, but he's trying to keep up the aura when the aura has been lost during that fight.
I know what you're saying. It's ridiculous that they're even trying to claim a win, and anyone that is trying to claim a win, I think they need to give their head a good wobble because they're clearly not thinking straight. So moving on from UFC Noche or UFC 306 for Sphere, the triple branded. Another fight announcement or another card announcement which came with some breaking news was John Jones and Stipe Miocic was announced. Of course, this wasn't the breaking news. The breaking news that came with it was that Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira is going to be on the undercard, which means the Mac, Conor McGregor, is now without a fight. Michael Chandler has waited 2 years. He was a very active fighter before all of this. 2 years. He's now 38. Am I right in saying? 38 years
Something
of
like
age.
that, yeah.
Yeah, so Michael Chandler is not exactly in his prime, and he has just wasted 2 years waiting on Red Panty Night that never came. What's your thoughts here on Conor McGregor? I seen him there at the weekend at the Joshua and Dubois fight, holding a cigar the whole time. I'm just waiting on him launching a cigar range or something. Surely that had to be an advertisement for something. What's your thoughts? What we seeing back in the octagon? He done an interview with Ariel Helwani, and he said that he'll be back in 2025, but it's looking very, very doubtful, isn't it?
Everything looks more and more doubtful. Like they finally got it booked for International Fight Week earlier this year, and then he broke his pinky toe. Now I'm no expert in body injuries, and everybody heals and takes it differently. But I feel like with a broken pinky toe, that takes probably 6 to 8 weeks, maximum 2 months, right? And you could be back for December, have the December card. or even earlier because he broke it in July. So if he takes 2 months, August, September, he'll be training camp for October, November, and then you either way you'll be ready by December. You'll be ready by early this year. I think Conor likes his lifestyle, and he has so much stupid money that he doesn't have to fight. Is he really gonna go back and fight for UFC for 2 million to show, 2 million to pay? He makes 2 million just like probably off a stock sale from whatever he owns. There's no reason for him to fight, to come back and fight, obviously. As well as for Chandler, I mean, man, he really wanted that red panty night. He really wanted that red panty night because he acted like a whore to wait for 2 years wait for Conor to come back, finally get a date booked, only for Conor to pull out, and then for him to come back to fight Oliveira. I think Chandler looked like the biggest clown out of all this. Conor is definitely laughing on his boat on his way to Milan or somewhere. So I think good. Chandler getting a fight. He's getting a rematch for Oliveira. He did win round 1 versus Oliveira. It was a very entertaining fight. Chandler hasn't been in a boring fight. So as long as we just saw him fight, I was hoping we'd see somebody new he would fight. Somebody probably, I know he wants to stay in the top 5, fight somebody in the top 5, but he lost everybody in the top 5 already. Gaethje, Poirier, Oliveira, like those are the big names in the top 5. So maybe fight like a Gamrot. But Gamrot just fought. Oliveira hasn't fought in a while. I still like the matchup. I still give the edge to Oliveira. I know Oliveira's right now the underdog probably. We'll see how fresh Chandler is because he's been off for 2 years. He hasn't been fighting anybody. He's been in a training camp. He's been on Tough. He's been bullied by Conor on Tough. He's been bullied on Conor on Twitter. So I think he has a lot of anger build up inside of him that he wants to let out at MSG. Also, no better place to come back than MSG as well.
It doesn't matter what way Chandler's trying to frame this. It seems he's trying to frame it as if you have to take these risks in life. And, he's probably one of the best motivational speakers in the whole organization, maybe in MMA in general. And the way he's trying to frame this is that you have to take risks. But Chandler could have fought 1 year ago. It was very obvious 1 year ago Conor McGregor wasn't going to be in the octagon within the following year. Chandler could have had a fight in between and still waited on McGregor. So I'm just shocked that it's took him this long. And especially if I thought he might have come back and just went for, maybe like a BMF. I don't think he deserves the BMF, but I could have seen him going for them kind of more glory fights as opposed to trying to actually go on a title run. So by coming back and fighting Oliveira, I was surprised. I'm shocked Oliveira has opened up as an underdog. How does that work?
I think that's from what I heard. I'm going to check the odds.
I did hear that too.
Yeah.
I did hear that too. I'm not going to say it's free money because Michael Chandler has that knockout power, if this is true about Oliveira being an underdog. But I don't see how you can justify them odds. Surely Oliveira got beaten his last fight against Arman Tsarukyan, but it was a very, very good fight. Arman Tsarukyan's top level. He's going to be the guy challenging for the lightweight title next. So there was no stock dropped.
I just want to mention I did lie. I lied. I just checked on the UFC official page, and Oliveira is the favorite, almost 3-1 favorite right now.
Almost 3-1.
So
I thought
maybe
I did see that somewhere. To be fair,
I think when they first announced it, they mentioned Oliveira was the underdog. The money line must have changed since the announcement until today. Because if you've seen it, and I feel like I've seen it, money definitely went towards Oliveira since he's underdog, and now he became a favorite. So whoever cashed in for the underdog on Oliveira, I think it's a very good choice right now. They're very happy.
Missed out in that one, John. We could have been quids in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for Conor McGregor, what's your thoughts if someone held a gun to your head and we said, "Will we see him fight in the UFC again?" What's your answer? Yes or no?
Gun to my head.
Yeah.
My answer is I don't know. I simply just don't. With Conor, you just don't know. For some reason, like he fought Poirier back to back, and then he fought Cerrone before that. I just don't know. Like, it has to be a fight that would make sense for Conor to win. Someone who would probably blitz, who would get countered, somebody who is not top tier lightweight division, somebody who wouldn't care about who's a lightweight, would make welterweight, just for a glory fight. Somebody who's small for welterweight. I feel like I described Chandler. I described Cerrone when he fought Cerrone. Cerrone's like an in-betweener who's also old. Chandler's the older side too. He's been through wars just in the UFC. So it has to be someone who makes sense. I feel like it could be Chandler again. I feel like at this point they'll just throw him Tony and like be like, good luck. Just whoever winner retires, loser retires. Just leave the UFC.
I think that there is a fight that makes sense actually at welterweight too. We've seen Tony stepping up. Is Tony a natural welterweight? Not by any means, in my opinion. So that is one that makes sense. There's a narrative going around that Conor McGregor has 2 fights left in his contract, and he's made it very, very clear that he's excited for the options he'll have as a free agent afterwards. Reading between the lines, this means a boxing fight with maybe Pacquiao or someone that gets here, maybe even Jake Paul, or I don't know. It looks like that's kind of I know. But it does look like that's the direction that he wants to head from hearing him speaking. So there's a narrative going around that the UFC are trying to delay this as long as possible, because the longer they have Conor McGregor on their roster, the more buying power for TV rights, etc., which is coming up next year. Do you think there's any truth in this?
I do believe it. If the way you mentioned it, yeah, because Conor wants to go to boxing, he'll make way more money in boxing. He made like half of his money from the Mayweather fight. I'm pretty sure, like, wasn't it a crazy amount of like, not quite sure, 200 million, something like that.
I was over 100 million. I can remember that anyway.
So something crazy like that. Like in the UFC, you wouldn't fight for 100 million. So he's definitely probably trying to go to boxing. He's not in Jake Paul's age range. Jake Paul fights people who are half retired, 60 and above. So he's too young for Jake Paul. But I do see like somebody like a Pacquiao, maybe a Crawford. He might be too big for Crawford. Maybe a Canelo. Canelo might be a bit. Canelo just looks bigger. He's on his prime, so that would be probably a massive fight if he gets Canelo. Maybe a David Hanley, maybe a Ryan Garcia.
What about a trilogy with Diaz and boxing?
That could work out too. But Diaz in boxing, when he fought Masvidal, I'm pretty sure he just made $5 million, $5 or $2 million, something in the single digit $1 million. So I don't think Conor would do that, because unless they can negotiate with a bigger network like the Zone or somebody, because who did they have for Diaz and Masvidal? Something friendly?
Yeah, it wasn't a big organization
right. It wasn't a big organization. And then after the fight finished, they couldn't pay Diaz, and Diaz started suing. Right. So I don't think. I think maybe with Conor star power, they could probably sell their rights for somebody bigger who would pay them. Maybe do it in Saudi and get Riyadh season on it, and get like everybody get. I think Conor want to get paid more, so probably he get another 100 million, maybe 150 million, and then Diaz will get like 100 million, something like that, something crazy like that. So I could definitely see that. I think the UFC would be smart to doing better a Diaz Conor trilogy in UFC as a to get the money grab from that, and then maybe that'll be one of his fights on his contracts for Conor, and then bounce to boxing, get that rematch there like they with Diaz and Masvidal.
I can see that happening for sure. So moving on to the UFC this weekend, I am buzzing. European time. It's not very often that happens for us. This is like, you don't understand, John, how frustrating it is having to fight. They stay awake every time you watch a card. See when it's on at European time. And I actually seen something as well. 7 out of the last 11 UFCs until I think it's maybe until the end of the year are on at European time. So I'm buzzing for that. UFC Paris this weekend. We've got Benoit Saint Denis, the God of War, taking on Money Moicano. It's a bit weird having UFC Paris without Cyril Gane. Of course, he's fighting in Saudi Arabia, so he's not on this card. But I think we're just so used to seeing him headline.
Cyril Gane and Volkov. Volkov pulled out. He got injured. They're moving
I
that
seen
fight
that
to
actually.
UFC 310 for December.
That's
Yeah,
right. You just reminded me because I was thinking whenever that happened, it was too good to be true. That Saudi Arabia card, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, luckily we already seen that fight, right, a few years ago. So luckily, not big damage done to that main card, but it's still fire. It's still fire
I
because
think it
we
was just
had
interesting because Volkov looks like a different beast, especially coming off the win against Pavlovich.
yeah. Well, he took all of his aura. He took all of Pavlovich's aura. Aura lost. Pavlovich lost all of his aura. So and now Volkov is on a 4-fight winning streak with 3 of them coming by finish, if I'm not mistaken, or 3-fight winning streak, 2 of them come by finish. Heavyweight division, you get a good win streak, you're back in the top 5 and calling for a title shot. So
Yeah.
he's right there. He's right there. And I was talking this with Taylor, but everybody fought Tom Aspinall. So we wanted somebody fresh. But he hasn't fought Volkov in a while. That was his first main event in England. So it could be an interesting rematch once Jones and Steve retires. But going back to UFC Paris, yeah, a little bit weird not see Gon, but I do like how they're trying to bring BDS back. BSD, because Benoit Saint Denis is a really good lightweight. I think his loss to Poirier didn't diminish anything. And main eventing in Paris, I know he's kind of beloved there from what I hear. I think it'll be pretty cool for him to main event against Moicano, who's becoming a fan favorite because of his talking on the mic. So if he slowly gets that win, he can slowly get the hype back and probably fight against somebody in top 5, and we could see him fight eventually. I feel like BSD versus Oliveria, BSD Chandler, BSD Gaethje is all good fights.
Yeah, I agree. So BSD, it's kind of a funny one with Benoit Saint Denis because yes, he did get beat by Dustin Poirier, but I don't think you can really base where he's at right now off that performance because in that first round, he looked very, very good. He had Dustin Poirier on the back foot and he very clearly won that round. But in round 2, he just got caught. There was a lot of things around BSD having staff in that fight. I'm not sure if that was ever confirmed or not. I think it might have been confirmed from memory. So
it was
of course that
confirmed.
affects.
Yeah.
So that there can affect the cardio. We've seen people fight my staff before, and they're a shell of themselves at times. So that could be a factor there. Where do you sort of rank BSD now? Do you think he's and in my opinion, I think he's a level above Moicano. Yes, Moicano has picked up 3 wins on the bounce, but look at the opponents. The best one was Jalen Turner, which of course was a great win. But again, Moicano lost that first round, and he did manage to find a way. He took him down, ground and pounded him in round 2. But my review of it, or my preview of it, is that BSD is just a level above on the feet. Would you agree with that?
100%. Moicano, to me, he shouldn't be in the top 15 rankings. I don't think. I guess if you have RDA, in there in the top 15, I think. I mean, he did beat Turner, who was 11th, so maybe he does belong, but I don't see Moicano as that good. That was Moicano's first TKO KO finish in his career. So the fact that he got that done, props to you, but I think Moicano would have lost if Turner just didn't walk away. And everything would have been changed in the path with history. But yeah, I do see him a level above. I see him right now, BSD, ranked just outside top 5. He's for me, in the top 10 to 5 lightweights in the world. He's not in the top 5 yet, he's just outside of it. And I could see him because he lost to Gaethje. Gaethje is just a legend. Gaethje always does this. Sorry, not Gaethje. Poirier. Poirier does this to everybody in the division. He's just that good. He still is good. So I could definitely see him getting into the 6 to 10 rank. And there's amazing matchups for BSD for his style, like Fiziev, Hooker, Chandler, Gaethje, like everybody mentioned. Like, he just doesn't stop moving forward. Like, I think people forget like his wins against Frolova at MSG. Like, that was crazy win. He is that good.
He has looked very, very good, and I think people is forgetting just how good he is because had that defeat against Poirier. But as I said, there was a hell of a lot of factors going into that. I actually forgot about the whole Turner walking away moment in the Moicano fight, and you're right in what you say, that the outcome of that could have been completely different if that didn't happen. It was a bit of a strange one, that by Jalen Turner.
And 300K for Jalen Turner for the walkaway, for the KO. He would have got 300K. He missed out on the W.
Right.
He missed out on a bonus. That was I know you want to walk off KO because it looks awesome, looks cool on highlight reels, but I think the 300K bonus on UC 300, you could have just at least landed one. If like some ground and pound to finish the guy, if he like moved his legs and just whipped a hook to Moicano's face just to completely knock him out and looks brutal, I think that looks just as good as a walk-off. So I think big fight IQ lost for Turner showing in that fight.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's quite interesting this because depending on who wins, it really changes who fights next. I think it's written in the stars that if Moicano was to get a win here, his next fight will be Paddy Pimblett. I think that's been very much talked about. I know we discussed Paddy earlier when we were talking about Brian Ortega, but BSD and Paddy Pimblett, that there's not really a fight I can see. Which fights can you see been made here based on who wins?
BSD and Paddy. Do you want Paddy be killed, murdered in the octagon? No. You want the hype to continue.
Not yet, which is why yeah.
I think Moicano loses. I think he's still going to be ranked 11, or they're going to swap with BSD. Where's BSD ranked? BSD's ranked 12 and Moicano's 11, so they'll just flip
12
in the rankings if BSD wins. So I could definitely see probably Paddy facing Moicano because Paddy is 15, and then just move up to 12 as look, he moved up the rankings. Then you'll find somebody else in there, like a Benil Dariush, who's like on a losing streak, not looking good, getting older, in the top 10. So they're gonna slowly build him up the rankings. I know he wants to do something like what O'Malley did when he fought Petr Yan from being ranked 13 to ranked number 1. But I don't think Paddy's at the level of O'Malley was back then. And I think
there's more question marks over Paddy, isn't there?
There's way more question marks because if you throw in Paddy over the likes of Sarukian, Oliveira, Gaethje, Poirier, he's gonna get murdered. I think you have to build him up slowly until Paddy gets serious and doesn't get fat and breaks records for eating the most wings at a restaurant. Then you could probably look at him getting more top 5 looks. But now I just don't see it. It's unrealistic. BSD, if he wins, moves up. I think he moves up. He's ranked just outside top 10. So Fazeev, who's been out, I don't know if he has a fight announced. Probably a Fazeev type fighter. If Hooker is down for it, I'll see Hooker. But I think Hooker's looking more up. Maybe Bear Dariush. Like anybody in the top 6 to 10 is a great matchup for BSD. Even Gamrot. And BSD has a really good wrestling defense. So I could see him taking on any of them.
So, time for your official prediction for UFC Paris then. I'll kick us off. I think Benoit Saint-Denis in his home country, he's looking revenge after that Poirier loss. I think he's going to get a round 3 KO, in my opinion. I think he'll be too quick on the feet, too powerful, too strong for Money Moicano. What's your thoughts?
First round knockout. Benoit Saint-Denis. Same points as you, looking for revenge. Too fast on the feet. Good takedown defense. I think he has a really good defense. Good wrestling. Moicano has no answers. He's gonna probably try to take him down and hold him there for 5 rounds, but I don't think it's gonna be possible. It's the fireball that Saint-Denis is. So first round knockout. If it's not first round, second round knockout.
I hope everyone enjoys the fights this weekend, and if you're in the UK, of course, it's on good time for us UK/European fans, so that's always a bonus. John, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you enjoy the fights this weekend too. What time will it be on for you during the day?
I believe it's 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. Let me check that.
That there's not actually too bad either. Is that the main card starting at 3 or the prelims or?
I'm checking right now.
I'm not quite sure. I know the Edmonton one that's in Canada. Yep, 3 p.m. Main card starts at 3 p.m. and so does the UFC Edmonton in Canada, which I'm going to. Also going to
cool.
be 3 p.m. So very friendly for UK friends.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, John, and thank you for listening, everyone. Just a reminder, the Combat Sports UK podcast will be out every Monday evening / Tuesday morning from now on. So make sure and stay tuned and tune in for more of this fight news and gossip and card breakdowns and me and John having some debates with each other. Cheers. Yep. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.